Welcome, everybody, to our History of Hanukkah quiz. And we're going to find out how much Mark from Archaeo Soup knows about the history of Hanukkah.
Very
And
little.
very, and all of its customs. I think this is so. We'll crack on quickly because
Okay.
the very first question is going to pertain to the fact as to why Hanukkah and in the year of our Lord 2024, why Hanukkah and Christmas fall out on the same day this year. So, Mark, do you have your quiz board ready?
I do. Franklin and soup. Yep.
Question the first.
Okay.
What does Hanukkah have to do with Christmas?
Oh, it has diddly squat to do with
Yeah,
Christmas.
exactly. Sweet Fanny
Yeah.
Adams. The
Yeah.
celebration of Hanukkah is actually much older than Christmas. Christmas only began to be observed sometime in around 2nd century AD.
Hmm.
And the story of Hanukkah takes place exactly in 167 BC, when the Seleucid Empire ruled Judea. And it's a
Okay.
holiday that takes place on the 25th of Kislev, which is not 25th of December. The Kislev is often the Hebrew month. It's a lunar calendar month. And it's often the month that corresponds with December, but they're always shifted. They're always off. The Jewish New Year runs on the lunar calendar, which sometimes has an extra month, and that is this year. So Adar
Okay.
Bet, or Adar the second, is added to the lunar month, I think once every 18, 19 years or so,
Hmm.
just to reset the calendar cycle. And Hanukkah in general is not a major holiday on the Jewish calendar. It's not one of the Shalosh Regalim, which is the three pilgrimages for harvest festivals, like Sukkot and for Passover and Shavuot.
Okay.
And it's not even a Yom Tov, meaning that you have to go to work for Hanukkah.
Hmm.
So it really only became a major holiday in the US and parts of Europe, be really because of its proximity to Christmas. And
Yeah.
because of that, Hanukkah has taken on a lot of Christmas-looking like traditions. Because it was
Well,
really just to commemorate the rebellion. That was pretty much it.
yeah. And I'm sure we'll come on to some of these Christmas looking like traditions because if one of them is what I think it is, then
What do you think
it.
it is, Mark?
Oh, I don't know. I don't want to preempt anything that you're about to say. But it's interesting as well because I think my exposure to the whole crossover was really actually through US movies growing up. It was
hmm
through and people's going Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, hey, So it's well, yeah, I think it was before Happy Holidays was really popularized. People would go through and say
People
individual
have been
holidays.
saying I have old commercials from the 80s when I was growing up,
Yeah.
and they've been saying Happy Holidays since antiquity,
Okay.
really.
Okay.
Yeah, this whole we talked about this a little bit when we talked about the difference between Merry Christmas, and Happy Holidays when we did our Christmas thing last year.
Hmm.
This has been going on since forever. Happy Holidays is quite so for example, in French we say bonne fête, which means happy holidays.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
it. So this whole idea that, people are trying to get rid of Christmas. No, people have been saying happy holidays at least since I've been alive, since the 80s.
I,
I
I mean, to be fair,
quite
I've got a coffee cup here and not a single tree on it or just a snowflake or anything. Disgusting. Hmm.
You're trying to erase Christmas, Mark.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do that. Yeah.
So speaking of erasing Christmas, what does the word Hanukkah mean?
I'm guessing. Is it a conjunction of two words?
Oh, very interesting, Mark. So give yourself half a point because
Okay.
so it means to dedicate. But
Oh,
there
okay.
is there is something that I learned when I was a kid, which is Hanukkah, which means we commemorate the 25th. That is
Okay.
that is a later reading though. That's not really, and it's just really a happy coincidence.
Okay.
But it really means just to dedicate, or to rededicate in this case. Even Josephus, our good buddy Josephus, in his Antiquities of the Jews, he talks about it being called the Festival of Lamps. And then obviously
Ah.
from there it becomes Festival of Lights. Um, it's also called Hag HaOrim, which means the Festival of Lights. And that's been going on for quite a while, actually. When Josephus wrote about Hanukkah, in that he says that by 164 BCE, Hanukkah was already being called the Festival of Lights or Lamps. Um, why he calls it this? It's very interesting because the whole idea of the miracle of the lights was not until Talmudic times.
Hmm.
So in modern times, we assume that the term refers to the custom of lighting the Hanukkah menorah, which is the nine-branch candelabrum. But Josephus doesn't say anything about it.
Right. Yeah.
There is a theory that the lights have to do with specifically honoring one side of the rebellion, and and it's possible that that is true. We're not sure because many uh, ancient sources don't really mention it, but it is curious that Josephus calls it the Night of Lights without
Hmm.
mentioning a menorah, without mentioning why they're lighting. Very interesting. Next question, Mark. This is the humdinger. What is Hanukkah actually about?
Well, yeah. You see, okay. Um, I am confused now. 'Cause I've just double checked, and are we going to come on to the candles in a bit, or not?
If you want to ask your question, go ahead and ask your question.
Well, it's just that so the menorah, but also the traditional Christmas-y candle setup both seem to have seven candles, three, three, and one. Um, and in the Christmassy
Is
setup
that
that
is
sold a
that
lot,
would a well, that's a menorah. Is that the menorah that we light on Hanukkah, Mark?
I
Does it
I
have three, three, and one?
I
Here,
don't
for
know.
those who can't see, I'm holding up a menorah, and
Oh, that's four,
we're
four, and
letting
one.
Mark count.
Interesting. So why is it why? Okay, this is why I'm confused. Because there are definitely versions of menorah, are there, aren't there? There are three, three, and one.
Oh, so technically, we don't light a menorah on Hanukkah. It's called a Chanukiah, which is a special version of it. So the menorah is
Okay.
something that was lit in the temple, in the first
Yeah.
and second temple, and really probably to represent the days of the week plus one day of rest, right? The thing is that they lit for the days of the week and then one presumably not lit at all.
Amazon's lying to me.
Oh yeah, of course. That's not. Oh, Mark
Is
just
that
held
not?
up. No, Mark just held up.
No?
So here's the thing. There are ways to do. You have to put the regular the daily
At one
lights
level.
on one
Yeah.
level, and then you have to put the shamash, the
In
middle
the
light,
middle,
or you can
top.
have it
Yeah.
on the side, either one. That has to be elevated to show that it's not one of those.
And yeah, this one it says here, Milliston traditional Jerusalem temple candle holder menorah.
Okay, I hear that. Yes, I understand that, but that's not. You can't use that for Hanukkah. No.
Weird.
So I reiterate my question, Mark. What is Hanukkah then
Did I mention I don't
ac
know anything about it?
actually about?
It's about togetherness and bringing together your love for
For
um
potatoes.
yes, and making sure that everyone um can emphasis on cha.
If everybody could do a chet properly, we wouldn't be here.
No.
No, Hanukkah is here's the interesting thing. The story of Hanukkah has kind of been sanitized a bit throughout the years. And again, because of its sort of proximity to Christmas, people are like, oh, it's about being together and eating latkes and playing dreidel, when really the story of Hanukkah is about a civil war.
Oh,
It's kind of been sanitized by the rabbinical period.
okay.
It's a civil war really between, I mean, we don't really use this word now, but like Hellenized Jews, I guess, the Hellenistic Jews, and Jews essentially who wanted to be left to practice their religion as they were, because they were allowed to keep the temple and practice as they wanted to.
Yeah.
And then Antiochus IV, the Seleucid king, showed up and went, "Nah, I'm just going to change these rules."
Hmm.
And but there were Jews who didn't mind, like they rededicated the temple to other gods, and this is really about a revolt. And
Mm.
it's a revolt that started in a place called Modi'in, which is still around today. Antiochus IV made the decree that Jews were no longer allowed to practice their religion in the way that they wanted to, and so he was kind of railroading that. He's like, nope, now we're all going to be Hellenized, and that was that. And he sent out envoys and forced everybody to comply.
Mm.
Mattatyahu, or Mattathias, I think is his English name, was the first priest to rebel. But the story goes that so Mattatyahu, or Mattathias, he is of the Hasmonean dynasty. And the story goes that when Antiochus sent his envoys out to make sure that they were practicing the quote unquote new way, that Mattatyahu said, no, screw you. And he killed the envoys. And that was the beginning of the rebellion.
Is that
Uh,
literally what he said?
well, he probably didn't say anything. He probably just shanked them. And that was that. He probably desisted, and that, or and that was that. But the people who came to tell him, hey, you have to be practicing in this new way, they were said to be Jews or Hellenized Jews. So
Right.
this ended up being a interwar revolt. And so the rebellion began. And but from the story goes, Mattisyahu's sons, the Maccabees, ended up leading the revolt for a few years. Biblically speaking, the author of Maccabees 1 portrayed the Maccabean revolt as a rising of pious Jews against the annihilation of their religion by the oppressive Seleucid Empire. But the
Hmm.
author of Maccabees 2, the biblical passage, depicts instead a brutal civil war and an internal struggle within the Jewish community between Judaism and the emerging Hellenism.
Mm.
Um, and words that obviously we don't really say the word Hellenize anymore. It's kind of weird. There were Jews who wanted to assimilate, and the Maccabees put an end to that by stamping out the rebellion.
Mm.
And there are even reports possibly of them forcing other people to convert back the other way. So
Mm.
that's really what Hanukkah is about.
Ah, forced conversions and civil war. Nice.
Always
Yeah. Yay.
fun. Next question, Mark. When was Hanukkah first celebrated?
Uh, as soon as it could be.
Ah, very good. Yes. So according to our friend Josephus, he says Hanukkah was in full swing only 3 years after this event that took place on
Mm.
the 25th of, or after the rededication on the 25th of Kislev. It was a holiday that was probably instituted by the Hasmonean dynasty to
Okay. Yeah.
legitimize their new rule.
Yeah.
And that was that. So,
Mm.
the Megillat Ta'anit in the first century contains a list of festive holidays on which there's fasting or on which fasting and eulogizing are forbidden.
Hmm.
And it specifies that on the 25th of Kislev is Hanukkah of 8 days. And one is not to eulogize. And so that's that on the 25th. And
Okay.
then obviously he references the story of the rededication of the temple. How long is Hanukkah, Mark?
10 days? Nine.
No,
Nine.
no, it's eight
Eight.
days.
8. Shit. It's the middle one. It's the middle one.
It's
Put me
eight
up.
crazy nights, eight
Yes.
days, and it's always been 8 days. There was an
Okay.
idea that maybe it was really only one because again, it mentions the 25th of Kislev
Yeah.
as the day. So why it was originally made into 8 days, um,
Oh,
we
you even
don't.
said 8 days before. You
Yeah,
said
but
you
we
like.
don't.
Oh.
The trick here is we actually don't know why 8 days. It was probably
No.
made 8 days to match the other major holidays. Like let's say so Passover is 8 days, and
Mm.
so is Sukkot. Sukkot's also 8 days. But as I said before, it's not a yontif. It's not one of the Shalosh Regalim, and so you still have to go to work. So why make it 8 days, especially when it's very clear from all of our
Excuse me.
ancient
Mm.
sources that it says 25th of Kislev, one day. So we actually don't we assume that it was made 8 days to match the other holidays.
It's because
But
the candle would be wonky otherwise.
yeah, I thought you were actually going to mention the miracle of the lights, which is the thing that people always reference.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that.
What's the
I do.
miracle of the lights, Mark?
It's oil, isn't it? To do with oil? Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
lamps
they
in
only have
those
oil
days,
for like a day or something, don't they?
yeah, so lamps
Yes.
those days obviously were not candles, they were oil.
Yeah.
And they were probably purified olive oil. Sesame oil was used in Babylonian Empire, but probably in this region, probably purified olive oil. And the story goes that the
Hmm.
miracle of they found oil enough in the pot to last for 1 day, and
Hmm.
it lasted for 8 days. Problem is that story was rabbinic invention. It's never mentioned anywhere in any of the original texts.
Hmm.
It was mentioned in the
Hmm.
Talmud for the first time. So
Yeah.
uh, that's we don't really know.
No. But
Uh,
it's also interesting. It's one of the stories that definitely makes it uh it's in children's books for Christians as well. It's
mhm.
one of those sort of temple stories that yeah. So
Yep.
it's a nice story, definitely. Yeah.
Oh yes, the
Hmm.
thing is that that's really what it is. We humanity in general, as we have said before last year with our Christmas one, humanity loves stories.
Hmm. Yeah.
Stories absolutely are the way to go for holidays. So,
We're all stories waiting for our denouement, aren't we?
oh God. Um,
In the dark of the winter. So go on.
uh, Next question, Mark.
Yeah.
Why isn't Hanukkah in the Bible?
Sorry. This is yeah. Uh,
For
I
those who are
don't
just
know.
listening, I'm watching Mark having a conniption.
um.
Trick question. It is. It's just not in the Torah.
Oh, thank God for that. Right. Okay. I was just like, what?
There are
Of course,
very
it's not in
few
the Torah. Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
very few canons that actually keep one and two Maccabees. We actually have several books of Maccabees, but one and two were pretty much the only ones that were. There are technically eight books of Maccabees, but only the first and second are actually in the Bible. But those are in the Catholic canon, and they are absolutely not in the Torah.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Uh, but the book of Daniel is said to allude to the desecration of the temple. But Daniel was written about 400 years before the event of Hanukkah took place.
Okay.
So, I mean, one and two Maccabees, people, if you're Catholic, you might know it, especially two Maccabees,
Hmm.
but it's not considered in the canon because the canon, Jewish canon, was solidified before that date. And as well as I was told when I was younger, one of the reasons it's not there is because apparently some of the text is not complete. I do not know if that is any longer true. I have not been in the biblical scholar sphere in many years, so it's possible that we do have all the text. It's also possible that that person was referring to one of the other books of Maccabees, uh, which are not in anybody's canon. So there are eight books, but there are only two that are actually in the Bible and none that are in the Torah.
Little known fact: when you buy a PC, it often comes with it pre-installed, and you have to get. Sorry, no, that's Maccabee, obviously. Uh,
That's great.
sorry. Go on.
Fantastic. Okay, next question.
Hmm.
Why do we light the lights on Hanukkah? I gave you a little hint before.
You uh one lights them. Well, to commemorate the miracle of the lights.
Yeah, that's pretty much
Yeah,
it. That's the only why we do it.
yeah.
However, like I said, there were some scholars who believe that the lights were a way to show the Jews who won the rebellion that they were on their side. Other ways,
Oh,
other
so they put them at the
archaeologically
window.
speaking, there are some who believe that it was a way to show Jewish identity because the symbol of the menorah became synonymous with Judaism around this time. But very interestingly, archaeologically speaking, we actually have menorahs with crosses on them.
Oh,
So
okay.
don't know. We don't really know why the menorah was such a ubiquitous symbol for Judaism, but it seems like at least in this period, it seems to take on a Jewish symbolism. And now, obviously, people see the menorah and
Yeah.
understand what it is. But
Hmm.
anyway, yep, that's that. Again, a very Talmudic. We don't know why we do it. We just do it. Next question mark. Where did latkes come from?
Um, they come from
The
uh
latke tree.
They come from lovely people. If you're very good, you'll get some uh, lovely treats.
If your answer was your bubby, give yourself a point. But the latkes originally came from Italy. They were actually made of cheese first.
Oh,
Potatoes obviously didn't come to Europe
no,
until
no.
much later.
Yeah.
But in other regions they don't have potatoes. Instead, they eat donuts or sufganiyot, which are just fried dough, fried in olive oil. Fried foods in general, though, are the staple of Hanukkah now,
Mm.
because the oil is what's supposed to be considered to be it's sacral, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
where did the dreidel come from?
Ah, now I know that the dreidel is relatively recent, and I'm going to say it came from Europe.
Yes, yes, it did. The
Yes.
dreidel is developed from either, there's fights over this, from either an Irish or English, that's why there's fights, a Christmas top that was introduced to Germany called a
Okay.
teetotum. There are some
Yeah.
people who mistakenly believe that this came from a Roman tradition,
Hmm.
but I mean, we do have Roman tops, but they don't look anything like this.
No.
This top specifically, it was an English Christmas game that was introduced to Germany and got really popular around this time. In
Hmm.
in German, the top was called a Trendel, pretty close,
Ah,
with the
okay.
German letters for a whole, half, none, and all put in, which were then adapted into Yiddish for nun, which meant nicht, nothing.
Yeah.
Gimel for ganz, meaning health or whole.
Hmm.
Hey for half.
Hmm.
And Shin for Shtetl, which means like put your hand in, like, but you have to give something. And
Okay.
it was a gambling game. And so you would do the
Mm.
time, you would put in pennies. Uh, so the letters were meant to essentially recall the rules of the game. So you turn it and then you give in, you take, etc. Sometime after 1949, the letters were sort of reappropriated to Hebrew, and now
Hmm.
it's the same letters. Well, there's the letters are Nes Gadol Hayasham, which means a big miracle happened there, or Nes Gadol Hayapo, which means the big miracle happened here. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay.
But there's a story. This is a story that I heard when I was young, and it is so mental. The story that dreidels came all the way from the Hasmonean period,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and that some rabbis said that Jews played dreidels in order to fool the Greeks if they were caught studying Torah, but was made up in the 1890s by rabbis who did not know when the Greek period was.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, where does Hanukkah geld come from, Mark?
Well, it's a bit like Catholic guilt in so much as you.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty much the same.
um, where does it come
You feel
from?
bad, so you give money. That's how it works.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Where did Hanukkah geld come from?
Uh, I I do not know.
So this is interesting because in the Sephardic Talmud, they talk about how they would collect money and use it to buy new clothes for students at this time of the year. Also,
Oh, okay.
money was also given to teachers, I guess, as a
So
means of
would that be
paying them for the new
students?
school year.
Would that be students who are going into sort of religious study or
It's assumed, yeah, that it's part of
right? Okay.
yeshiva. So the Italian Sephardic custom of providing for students,
Okay.
buying clothes for students and providing money for teachers on Hanukkah, which is when their school year, I guess,
Mm,
began or when things began in earnest.
yeah.
Because from this time all the way to Passover, there are no holidays really. So, well, technically there's Purim, but that's not a major holiday. And we could talk about whether or not it's historical as well. But also Hanukkah is a time, again, this time of the year, for whatever reason, in Sephardic communities was also a time to ask for charity or tzedakah. So that's where we
Mm,
get the idea of geld from. Obviously, there was no chocolate in the ancient times. And it's very possible that Hanukkah geld became chocolate really because of Christmas coins, like the chocolate
yeah.
Christmas coins.
Yeah.
Again, the same thing. So same ideas, like you give money during the holidays.
So, just out of interest, then, you said at the beginning how Hanukkah traditions can look a bit Christmassy. Is this so that basically kids, no matter who they are, feel as though they're all having a similar experience, or is this more actually a bit more broadly cultural to sort of match in with neighborhoods that you're living in? Like,
Amazing question, Mark. Let's answer it with this question. Why
okay.
do we give gifts on Hanukkah then, if it has to do with a revolt?
Um, Presumably, I'm going to go with kids were like, oh, why why does Timmy get a present? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Essentially, yes. So
Yeah.
really, again, everybody just used to get money and clothing for Hanukkah, and it really is because of it's a North American or really just a Western thing. Kids
Hmm.
only started getting presents really with the reform and conservative movements in the United States.
Hmm.
Um, and it even says it talks about regular the Takano in the Talmud Torah Association talks about how, like I said, kids got clothing
Hmm.
and they didn't get so they got essentially there's one line in Talmud Torah that says that they got a pair of shoes and a pair of socks. That's like the most gifts that we got really before the
Hey,
conservative and reform. Oh, listen,
it's
I'm very happy with
it's more than a
that.
lot of dads get these days at Christmas. So yeah.
Let me tell you about you get your ties and socks.
Yeah.
But this is why a lot of people, when SNL parodied Hanukkah Harry and he comes around to the kids on Christmas, giving them socks and disappointment. And I just went, why are they upset? That's what that's what I got as a kid.
Hey, those are good socks. Why is that kid crying? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, when I was growing up, I desperately wanted to celebrate Christmas
Hmm.
because when for the first couple of years of my life, I went to secular school and we celebrated Halloween, we celebrate Christmas. It's like, oh
Hmm.
man, these are so much fun. This is great. Thing is that we never had a tree or anything, but it's
Yeah.
just that I was allowed to participate in other people's Christmases. And then
Hmm.
as we got older and I went to I was forced to go to Jewish school, and then we started celebrating Hanukkah, and I went,
Oh,
what?
interesting.
Why? Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And my mother would just go, just do it. Doesn't matter. Just do it. And honestly, playing dreidel and actually we used to do like dreidels like Beyblades where we would spin them together so fast and have them try to knock each other. That was
Yeah.
fun. But there was always an argument over do we get like one present for all
Hmm.
8 days? Do we get little things? And then on the last day, we get a big thing. And my parents really did always feel pressure to
Hmm.
make, because there are very few other traditions other than eating latkes and playing dreidels and obviously getting and guilt. But we didn't really, we started doing like bigger things to sort of combat the
Hmm.
influence of Christmas, or rather
Yeah.
the influence of commercialism.
Yeah.
Um, but there were certain things that certain fun traditions that I wanted to do, like have a tree, we just couldn't do. So here's another question for you, Mark.
Hmm.
Speaking of trees, is the Hanukkah bush just a Christmas tree?
Uh, um, I'm. Is it reasonable to say yes, in so much as a Christmas tree is actually quite tangential to Christmas?
Yeah. I mean, the only reason, so many people might not know what I'm talking about, and really it's because it started out, seems like the whole idea of a Hanukkah bush. Like when I was growing up, we never heard of this, but
No.
I remember hearing on the radio in the 90s a woman saying, "Put this in your stockings or under your Hanukkah bush," and even my mother just went, "What?" We were in the car when that happened,
Hmm.
and we just looked at each other and went, "Hanukkah bush? What the heck is this?" And so I looked it up. And so January 10th, 1879, there was this whole idea of the Hanukkah bush.
Hmm.
And people just either making one to again combat, or it could be that the paper was completely mistaken and had no idea that that's not how Jews celebrated Hanukkah. There are many cultural writers who write extensively on how Jews in America brought in secularized versions of Christmas trees to their homes to sort of help uh,
Mm.
mold this idea into the public mind. But Hanukkah bushes in general are really just satirical.
Yeah.
They even people even put bagel ornaments on them. I've seen them. I have one.
Oh, that sounds good.
It's great. Um,
Okay, yeah.
there's a wonderful article called "There's No Such Thing as a Hanukkah Bush" by Sandy Goldstein, exploring the difficulties felt, really one by Jewish Americans who wanted to participate in a big holiday, but didn't have really
Yeah.
any connection to it, and two, families. This is actually more important, where families who had one parent who was Jewish and one parent who wasn't, and giving them a way to marry those traditions, which I think is
Mm.
interesting.
Mm.
And this way kids could feel like that they were celebrating both holidays at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
This question has nothing to do with Hanukkah, Mark, but it is very culturally important, I
Okay.
assure you.
Mm-hmm.
Why do Jews have Chinese on Christmas?
Because everywhere else is closed.
Ah, very good, Mark. Yes. So this tradition amazingly begins at the end of the 19th century on the
Yeah.
Lower East Side, where Jewish and Chinese immigrants lived together, and
Mm.
they didn't celebrate, neither one of them celebrate Christmas. So the very first mention of American Jews eating Chinese on Christmas dates to 1899,
Mm.
when the American Hebrew Journal criticized Jews for eating at non-kosher restaurants during a Christian holiday. By 1936, a publication called the East Side Chamber News reported at least 18 Chinese tea houses and chop suey eateries were heavily populated in Jewish neighborhoods on Christmas.
Mm.
Jews would go out to Chinese food on Sundays also, because there was no church. There was no church lunch to go to.
No?
And as well, it was a safe place to eat because Chinese restaurants don't really have dairy. And so there was
Yeah.
no mixing of milk and meat.
Yeah.
Um, so Chinese cooking is virtually like dairy free, well, most of it anyway, not all. But the tradition of going to the movies and having a Chinese dinner came because many Jewish families in New York, they had the day off for Christmas, and these were the only things open, as you said. And every year it's the same. I mean, I celebrate Christmas too, but every year for Boxing Day, we still go out for our Chinese, and Chinatown is flooded
Mm-hmm.
with people. I mean, everybody really. It's not just Jews anymore. It's everybody who just doesn't celebrate Christmas, or maybe who's had enough of their families and is like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I just want
Mm-hmm.
something else for 5 minutes. And knowing that, I mean, to be fair, Chinese Christians, I think, are the number two. China has the most Christians in the world after places like the United States. So
Right.
but they're still open.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
they know, because business is business, and you got to know your audience.
Yep.
Especially nowadays, they deal with a lot of tourists who are here for Christmas and who are just enjoying the Christmas holiday season. But there's
Mm.
nothing else open, especially here where I am in Montreal. There's a lot of Catholic French
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
traditions where they still close all the way until the 6th of January. As
Yeah.
well, here, the day after New Year's, January 2nd, is also a federal holiday, since we
Mm-hmm.
don't have any other holidays in January and February. So they give that extra day. So people here are really off till Epiphany, off till the 6th. And
Yeah.
so there's very little, if you're a tourist just coming to enjoy the scenery, there's very little that's open. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
people go to Chinatown. That's it. One bonus
Okay.
question for you, Mark.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you spell Hanukkah?
Okay, well, I'm just gonna Hannukah.
No, the answer is it doesn't matter because there are
No.
literally a million different spellings. There's Chanhann,
Yeah.
Hann. It doesn't matter. You can spell it however you want. There is no standardized spelling of the word Hanukkah in English.
And is in English. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So
Yeah,
it's a
in
bit.
in Hebrew, there is only one way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's only
yeah,
one way.
yeah.
But in
Okay.
English, you can spell it however you want. We also spell it here. We also spell it the French way, which is it was a Chanou, Chanukah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we spell it that way as well. It doesn't matter,
Yeah, yeah.
honestly. You could spell it however you want. I've seen people make bones about the fact that like, no, there's two Ks. No, there's two A. No, it doesn't matter. There's no standardized spelling. Knock
Well,
yourself
yeah,
out.
because I went
Spell it
with two
however you
N's
want.
for some reason. I don't know what. Yeah. Mm.
When I was growing up, I learned Chann, and nobody spells it that way. So,
Oh, okay. Chann.
yeah,
Okay, and then UKAH.
Channukah. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. But it
Ah,
doesn't matter.
but was it
There,
was that to emphasize like a at the beginning?
yes, exactly. It was to
Okay.
help people do the ch sound, but
Yeah.
people don't do it anyway. And they
Okay.
end up saying Chanukah, so it doesn't matter.
Chanukah. It's like Llandudno and Landudno.
Oh, yes, yeah, Llewellyn. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
oh,
Just go, oh no.
so painful. Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry, Mark. For my Welsh pronunciation, I do sometimes read it wrong, and the W's and the U's, I don't read them the way that they're supposed to
Yeah.
be read in Welsh.
And the
But I
double
know my
L's.
double
Yeah.
L's and I
Yeah.
know my double F's
Excellent.
always,
Excellent.
because I know that you would kill me if I didn't.
I can't kill you.
It's
I
true.
can, not from this distance anyway.
I am eternal. I will always be there over your shoulder going, "Are you sure about that, Mark?"
Yeah, oh God. Do you know that I won't lie, that hurt.
That's
With the
enjoy
Christmas
enjoy
presents.
the
Yeah.
gift of guilt for Hanukkah.
Yeah, yeah.